Hey guys, Dustin Com here with Adventist Hoops. Before we get into this episode with La Sierra University's men's head coach, Ethan Lowe, I want to tell you about a new company called Advent Sports that's looking to make a difference in Adventist athletics. You know, people talk about there being a talent gap between Adventist high schools and everyone else. Well, Advent Sports isn't just talking, they're doing something about it. At Advent Sports, they're building more than just athletes. They're building a future for Adventist sports. Whether it's through their college prep camps, where athletes get hands-on training and mentorship from current college coaches, or it's their skills academies aimed at teaching the fundamentals of your sport and the skills necessary to play at a high level, Advent Sports strives to help players develop their game, prepare for the next level, and open new doors to new opportunities. But their mission is bigger than athletics. They're looking to help grow the sport, create opportunities, and build lasting relationships on and off the court or the field. So if you're ready to take the next step and get involved, visit advent-sports.com today. That's advent with the symbol dash sports.com. They have plans to be involved with more than just basketball, so go check it out. And now, let's get to this episode with La Sierra University's men's head coach, Ethan Lowe. Hey everybody, welcome to the Adventist Hoops podcast. I think the second one that I've done in person. I'm really excited to be here in Riverside, California at La Sierra University with men's head coach Ethan Lowe. Ethan, welcome to the Adventist Hoops podcast.
Thank you for coming out. We're excited to have you. Looking forward to this.
We're here in the beautiful Zapara School of Business. It's a wonderful facility here. If you've never been down to La Sierra, if you are, you got to come check out this wonderful building here. Ethan, tell us about your journey that got you to this building here, that got you to this university. Where'd you grow up, and what was your basketball journey like?
So I grew up in Brea, California, played at Brea Olinda High School, started coaching at Rio Hondo College under my father at the age of 22. I was there for 4 years at the community college level. We made the state tournament, first time in quite a while at that level. Following my time there, I went over to Hope International University, an NAIA program. I was there for 5 years under Bill Check. You know, we were fortunate to always be nationally ranked and really got exposed to a high level of college basketball at the NAIA level. And from there, had the opportunity to interview for the position at La Sierra, and it was perfect timing. It's my first head coaching job, and it's been a dream come true.
What drew you to La Sierra? I mean, it's you are from Southern California, so maybe you were aware of La Sierra, maybe not. You know, it's not a huge school. So what was it that drew you to the school?
Everything. I was aware of La Sierra growing up. When I was at Hope, we would play La Sierra. We played here one time. I think it was my first year. And I always thought back to that. What was that beautiful school in Riverside we played with the beautiful campus and, you know, the waterfall when you first drive in and you know, when the interview, you know, when the connection started becoming stronger for the interview process, started looking it up. I was like, oh, that was the school we played at. And I started thinking, man, if I get this job, this is a blessing. You know, just it's hard to contextualize, really. Like, you know, every day I come here, I have to kind of pinch myself. You know, I feel like I'm the head coach at a university that offers a major campus experience. There's 60 majors here. You know, it's a pipeline for medical school. You know, we've had, you know, Brian Wright graduated from here. He's the general manager for the San Antonio Spurs. Patrick Crary, he's the head coach at Florida A&M, a Division I head coach. He went here. I mean, dreams can come true here, both, you know, athletically, academically, professionally. It's just, I think this is a hidden gem, and we're trying to build a championship program.
What was it that, you know, your dad, he coached, did you always know you wanted to coach, just kind of being in his, walking in his footsteps, or?
Definitely. I always wanted to be a coach. I always wanted to be a college basketball coach. My dad was a high school coach for the vast majority of his time as a coach. And after he had a successful high school coach, won a state championship, always competed for the league championship at La Serna High School in Whittier. And, following his retirement, the community college in the city of Whittier, Rio Hondo, reached out to him and essentially asked him, hey, would you like this position? And after the interview process, he took the position. And that, I was very fortunate to get that opportunity to start as an assistant at a very young age. And sometimes it's just about opportunity. And we try to provide that opportunity to people who are just, hungry and willing to put in the work. But yeah, I wanted to be a coach my whole life.
What was the biggest thing that you took from your dad as a coach that you're implementing now as a head coach yourself?
He would tell me to let it play out. Don't have an immediate reaction to anything positive or negative. Nothing's ever as good or as bad as it seems, and let things play out. I would say secondary to that, institute rules when you need to, but principles are a better set for creativity. If you have principles and you teach how to play rather than how to run plays, you're going to see the gifts, the God-given gifts, and just the hard work in the summer come to life in the fall and the winter in basketball season. When you provide a platform to play rather than to run a set system, so to speak.
Can you elaborate more on what he means when he says let something play out? Are you talking about in a game situation, in a drill in practice, or a bigger picture?
Both. Parallels to both. My dad, I'm not a father yet, but my dad would tell me, I realized later in my coach career, coaching is a lot more like being a parent. And when there's a catalyst to why people make decisions in basketball and off the court. And when you hear, let's take a negative example, say something negative is taking place, a player gets a technical foul. You don't always know what is taking place in that person's private life 48 hours leading up to the event, and maybe just now it's showing itself in a high pressure situation. And of course, through basketball we develop our character and our poise. But these are young men. These are 18-year-olds to 23-year-olds usually, and a lot of people during that time of their life don't always handle everything perfectly. And most people don't respond well to just being screamed at. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what's really going on here, and let's see if we can learn from this and grow from this and make sure this doesn't become a habit.
I think that's great advice. Very wise. Last year, La Sierra won the most games since joining the California Pacific Conference. Talk about that accomplishment last year. And was last year your first year, or was that your second year?
So last year was my second year. It was, following our first year, really hitting the recruiting trail. My first year, we brought in 4 players, a few of which from Hope International came with me as graduate students. A person named Caleb Tinker, who's now at Cal Poly Pomona. After that year, my first year, we recruited. We got a lot of community college transfers, all who had their associate's degrees. So that's a very important to us. We want to see people that have a history of an understanding of delayed gratification and sticking with things over a period of time. And we really try to stay away from guys who have transferred too many times. I think that showed itself throughout the stretch of our season last year. We only won 1 game out of conference, but we were able to keep it together. And when we got to conference, again, we ended up having somewhat of a historical season. And, we even played basketball on March 1st. Playing basketball in March as a college program is what you aim to do.
That's exciting. And in general, as you've been building the program here, how would you characterize your style, the system that you like to run? Or, I'm sure it develops and maybe changes a little bit depending on your personnel, but in general, what is the style that you like to play?
I like to put the decision making in the player's hands. And in practice, what we want to do is develop habits. Most of the time when you get to this position on the floor, we want you to do that. I don't want to give away all the intricacies of what we teach, both defensively and offensively. But, the dimensions of the court, they don't change anywhere you go. And a lot of our habits are our habits are going to come out during the fire. And, I would really say stylistically, offensively and defensively, on offense, I like to run motion. And really that's read how you're guarded, read how your teammate's being guarded. Understand the proper screening angle, understand how you should come off the screen. when you catch at this position on the floor, most of the time, what angle, what passing angle are you looking for? So those are things that, as a coach, you really implement during practice. And then when you get out on the floor, it's like, hey, let's.
I was going to say, it's less work for you in the game.
Absolutely.
You've already done all your work.
Absolutely. And at that point,
the players play.
Yeah. And I think at that point, I'm more of a motivator during the game. Keep energy up, emphasis on energy, emphasis on sprinting, emphasis on boxing out. I don't like to hold players back. If a guy can make a behind the back pass or a no look pass, I love to see it. I'm not going to, Steph Curry changed the game. The guys we're coaching at this point grew up practicing 3-point shots their whole lives, not as enamored with the dunk and things like that. I'm not going to penalize a guy for taking a shot 2 or 3 feet behind the arc if they've proven they can do it.
Sure.
Yeah, and they've practiced it for 15 years.
Yeah. You guys have been hard at work this season. We're at the end of December here in 2024, and you've already played 16 games, 5 games against Division I opponents. Talk about the value that you place on playing some of those bigger programs and what it does for your program.
Those games are so important to us. In addition to those games, we've played 2 national championship programs at the NAIA level. Exposing our players to the highest level of basketball that we will see is what we want to do. We want to prepare to win in March, and we want to show ourselves to the basketball community that, hey, we're here to play. And we are here, we're going to play anybody, anytime, any place. If you call us, and we're going to play. We want to play the best because we want to be the best. And I think we've proven ourselves for at least a half in essentially every single game we've played, whether that's against a Division I opponent, a top 10 nationally ranked NAIA opponent, a Division II national championship opponent, for a half. And we need to, when we get into conference, string together 40 minutes day in and day out in all of our games. But we have competed.
Talk about the game just last night. It was December 28. You're playing Cal State Northridge. I mean, that was an impressive first half.
Thank you. First off, very lucky to have the opportunity, very thankful to have the opportunity. Coach Newman over at CSUN is doing a great job. He took over the program last year. They beat UCLA last year. And last night we had a lead at halftime. And, it's kind of, I'll be honest, I think surreal. You're on ESPN Plus, there's the logos are out there. And
how nervous, did you start getting nervous at halftime? Like, oh my goodness, could this, you probably don't want to think that way yet.
No, it's just, I started to get nervous when we got the ball back. We should have had the last possession of the half, secure the lead going into halftime. We're up 2. The only way, this can only get better. And I'm telling Noel, last shot. He gets all the way to the rim, shoots it with about 5 seconds left. They jet down the floor. Luckily, they miss an alley-oop, so we're able to sit here today, the next day, and say we had the lead going into half.
Yes, that's awesome. You mentioned Noel. Talk about some of your leaders this year. Who are the guys that are really stepping up? You lost some guys last year, but who's stepping up for you this year so far?
Man, it's essentially a whole new group with a few returners. Robert Finkley, big guy, he's a returner. He's really stepped up. Last night he had 7 rebounds in the first half, and he's a guy who is really, there's games where he plays a lot and there's games he doesn't play at all, but he has shown through his readiness. That's a quality of being a seasoned veteran. He's in his senior year. Those are leadership qualities. Tyler and Tristan Broughton, they came to us from San Diego State. All the experience they bring, they're leaders in just every sense of the word as far as how they carry themselves on and off the court.
And for people that don't know, the Broughton twins were able to be there for a national championship game 2 years ago.
Yes.
So they bring some really great experience.
Yeah, so they were at San Diego State for 4 years, and they redshirted, and then they got their COVID year back. So they were a part of the biggest run in San Diego State history for a 4-year period. So all of that experience that they have as far as what it means to be a part of a well-oiled machine, they bring, and we really see it, and I learn from it every single day. And then in addition, we got David Odinigwe, Mar Tablata, they transferred to us from St. Catherine's after they closed down. St. Catherine's is a great program. They would always compete for a CalPAC championship. Anthony Montoya, he's kind of emerged as our starting point guard. He has emerged as our starting point guard, and he had a great game last night. He was actually his community college coach referenced to me that Andy Newman from CSUN said, hey, reach out. And, La Sierra will be a good fit for him. So it's a great suggestion by Coach Newman, and it was kind of cool to see that come to life last night. A lot of guys, a lot of vets on our team. Mark Bolin, some of you guys might remember him from Netflix's Last Chance U. He was at ELAC on that first show. Mark has had a journey of basketball, that he catalyzed into somewhat of fame from Netflix, and he went to a Division II and then ended up with us. I recruited him for a few years trying to get him here, and now we got him. And Mark hit a big 3 last night, and his whole family was there. I mean, I think we have leaders across the board. We've just played a very, very tough schedule. Statistically ranked the 4th tough schedule in the entire NAIA. So, I mean, it's not just my opinion. It's analytical fact.
It's, statistical fact. Wow. You talk about your conference that you're in, California Pacific Conference. You guys are in that conference this season, and then talk about the change, I believe, that's happening next year.
Yes.
You'll be moving to a different conference, is that right?
Absolutely. And before I answer that, I wanted Alex Archer and a player we're going to get, Godfrey Little, in a few weeks here, are from Fullerton Community College. Fullerton Community College is one of the top-ranked community colleges in the country. They compete for the state championship every single year, and the way they go about things every day in practice, they're certainly leaders. They played for Perry Webster, great coach. We're in our final year in the CalPAC. We lost. So one of the reasons that's leading to us moving on is we lost Antelope Valley. Their school closed, and St. Catherine's closed. So the conference itself is kind of going through a transition. We had an opportunity to transition to the GSAC, formerly known as the Golden State Athletic Conference, is now the Great Southwest Athletic Conference. Half the teams are in Arizona, half the teams are in Southern California. That features my former institution, Hope International, where I was an assistant coach. They're nationally ranked. The Masters, they're nationally ranked. And Arizona Christian, they're nationally ranked. So we played all 3 of them this year. So again, indicating that we are going after it. We're trying to be one of the top-ranked NAIA programs in the country. We got to prove it. We haven't done it yet, but it's going to be a challenging conference.
And you were having to travel all the way up almost to Oregon for league games.
Yes,
at Simpson College, and so it's going to be less travel.
Yeah, and Pacific Union College, they're right now. We're in the CalPAC together. We're playing them out of conference this year. On January 11th, we're going to be honoring Brian Wright. We're retiring his jersey, the general manager of the San Antonio Spurs. But one of the things that we had spoken about with PUC was to make sure that we continue to play, even if we're not in the same conference. So we're getting a non-conference game with them this year, and we want to keep that going.
You're not Adventist yourself, but what have you learned about the Seventh-day Adventist Church in general? What have you maybe come to appreciate about the Seventh-day Adventist faith?
Well, it's really everything. When I said what appealed to me about the school, when I said everything, I meant everything. I grew up playing basketball at Rose Drive Church. That is where my elementary and junior high years. We're on a club team. We played for a gentleman named Larry Lewis, who faith and basketball have always gone hand in hand with me. When I was brought in to interview here, I was actually 3 years into being a vegan. And it was really interesting. I started, there's a vegetarian campus and I was like, perfect. This is I love it. And, I love the sentiment behind the Sabbath, as far as this is a time to rest. This is a time to prioritize what's most important. On our road trips, we travel during the Sabbath, and there's no basketball. There's no talk of basketball. This is time for you. And I think that time is very important. And over time, I've grown to, I believe, understand it, I dare say, more, and appreciate it even more. That it's important to you. It's important for everybody, health-wise, emotionally, spiritually, physically, to have that time. I like that it's a tight-knit community, That's one of those things that used to go hand in hand with basketball that is kind of eroding away due to the transfer portal and things of that nature. And I've noticed in the Adventist community, it's very tight-knit, very close-knit, and everybody knows each other, and I like that.
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, you can travel around the world and find some sort of connection via education or whatever. It's a small Adventist world for sure. I was going to ask you about, you mentioned the transfer portal. There was news recently that came out that if you play for a junior college or NAIA, that your NCAA eligibility is not at risk. Can you explain that a little bit for people that maybe aren't familiar with that?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert on the subject, but a very condensed version of my understanding is a quarterback who had played community college won a lawsuit against the NCAA saying that his community college participation shouldn't eliminate his opportunity to earn NIL money. And what that essentially boils down to is the judge said, hey, this person's right. So right now they're in the process of making, this player's been granted a waiver, and the NCAA has then followed by granting a blanket 1-year waiver that says if you participated in community college in the last 4 years or whatever it may be, don't quote me on that part, that you're going to have an extra season of play. And there's litigation behind it and things of that nature, but I think times are really changing with the portal, with NIL, and there's going to be a domino effect. And I think that it's possible that what's going to eventually come to fruition is that you'll have 2 years of community college eligibility and 4 years of university eligibility. That's not what it is now. That's my opinion. That's my read on it.
Interesting. You have been able to recruit a number of transfers from junior colleges or other colleges, and you also look at the high school level as well. So what are some of those? In fact, you're going to be at the Lowe Academy basketball tournament here over the next day or two. So what qualities are you looking for in prospects at the high school level?
At the high school level, above all else, maturity. They're competing against grown men as far as bringing you into the program. And you need to be mature here if you're going to last as a high school player, getting the opportunity to go directly into a 4-year university. And what that really boils down to in most cases is you're going to redshirt. You're going to have to go through the physical jarring nature of realizing, okay, I am not as strong as a 23-year-old man. And there's a process that's going to take place, a 4 or 5 year process that's going to take place. And it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years for you to really ever have an opportunity to see the floor, because we're going to continue to recruit transfers. We're going to look in the portal some, but what do you like academically? Over the big picture, did you transfer in high school? And how mature are you really? And that's, everybody has a good spirit on the phone. Everybody has when you're playing against people your age, you're going to look a certain way. But I've seen it quite a few times where there's a moment of realization from a high school player when they come into a practice or an open run against a bunch of adult men. It's like, okay, maybe that red shirt wasn't such a bad idea. And how that awakening is handled is really where we could decide if we can keep you or not. And it is my desire to have high school players. It's my desire to develop them over 3 or 4 years. The last thing I want to do is work with someone for a year or two and have them transfer. It's opportunity cost. It's out the window. You never get to see it. The habits all start to work together. But we like high school kids. We just need them to be ready mentally.
As you're describing that player, I'm thinking of Tyler Gray, and I met him a year ago, and I was just so impressed with his demeanor, and he was mentally mature, I would say, and wasn't fazed by anything that happened in a game, and so look forward to seeing his development here over the next couple of years as well.
Absolutely. You have to play college basketball, you have to be able to make open shots, and Tyler can do that. Tyler can do that now, and I'm excited to see how things go. Constantine Tablata, another freshman, and Luke DeSenya, another freshman. Those guys are bringing a lot to us every day.
What is your goal for La Sierra University men's basketball over the next 3 to 5 years? What is realistic? You want to build this program into a contender at the NAIA level. What's realistic over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think, last year we, by definition, competed for a conference tournament championship. We went to the conference tournament. We don't want to ever go back. We've been to the conference tournament. That's a postseason invite only. You have to qualify for that. First things first, we need to never look back from there. But we want to be able to compete with and by compete, we need to be able to beat any NAIA program on the West Coast. That's right in our immediate, line of sight. That's why we're scheduling those guys. I think we need to be in our conference tournament every year. We need to compete for a conference championship regular season in the top 3 every year. That's going to solidify that you're in the conference tournament. And then, from there, you're trying to get to the national tournament, which makes you competing for a national championship. And, we're a step or 2 away from that. We need to, but, we went to our conference tournament last year. And I think that we have the ability to be better than last year's team. But we had some guys on last year's team that had been in our program for 4 years. It wasn't all here. But Brandon Thomas and Luke Alviar, they were with me for a total of 6 years. We were at Hope for 4 years, and then they came here. And it's really shown itself this year what it's like not having guys that have been in your program for years and having those habits and knowing this gap's going to be filled, this pass is going to be made, this shot is going to be taken, whether it goes in or not, it's the right play to make. So that is the one piece where I'm saying, hey, we got to speed up this developmental process of cohesion amongst the group. But I think we need to be competing for our league championship every year.
Love it.
No matter what league we're in.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, we're in this building here as a part of School of Business. You are involved with this building,
yes.
And you're not only the men's basketball coach. What is the partnership like between this School of Business and the men's basketball program?
First, it's a beautiful partnership, and I'm so thankful for it. I am an outreach coordinator for the Zipporah School of Business, and most specifically their sports management program. They have a master's degree in sports management available, and that's something that we look to recruit student managers through, graduate transfers through, and the way things are shaking out, I think there's going to be a lot of student athletes who are getting their master's degree in their fifth and sixth year of eligibility if this junior college transition takes place. Dean John Thomas is very gracious to us, and they help support us. We've had the opportunity to have some events here. It's been great.
A couple more questions for you. Thank you so much, Coach, for your time this afternoon. One is very important, and that is that you are very well dressed. I love the suit. You look great. If you're just listening on audio, Coach came on a Sunday afternoon in a suit, and you also dress up for games.
Yes, sir.
But there's a trend of coaches dressing very casually,
yes.
more like what I'm dressed up as. And personally, I don't know if I really like the casual look. I kind of like the old school dress. So why are you sort of bucking this trend of dressing more casual?
In complete transparency, first off, I grew, like I said, I've always wanted to be a college coach. So the people I looked up to when I was a kid were wearing suits, and it's just, I never even thought about it. I was just I'm a college coach. And as soon as I started coaching in college, I was wearing a suit. During COVID, things kind of changed a little. And another thing is, we're just, La Sierra had struggled some winning, and we're not a doormat athletically. And we're here to compete. We're here to put our best foot forward. We're here to perform on a professional level all the way through. And it's just part of me putting my best foot forward.
It's so interesting because some people who don't like dressing up, they say, doesn't matter what you wear. And people achieve things wearing whatever. And then on the other side, there's people who say, hey, if I dress up, that shows everyone that I mean business, that I'm professional, and it says something subconscious, whether you like it or not. It's a message that's being sent. So anyway, I just had to ask you about that.
Yes, sir.
Because I've noticed that trend, and personally, I appreciate it. So keep it up. You look great. Coach, last question for you, unless you have anything else, but it's just a broad question that I ask a lot of people on the podcast to close, and that is, what does basketball mean to you?
Man, basketball means opportunity as far as an opportunity to develop the family that you're not born into, to develop yourself as a person, to develop a pathway for people to grow spiritually, to provide roadways into all different sorts of avenues of life. Basketball is it's a beautiful game when handled the right way. You share the ball, you share the experience. We open our doors. We have student managers. Part of getting these games is giving these guys the experience. These D1 games is giving the guys the experience of they're going to have these films the rest of their lives. They made a shot on ESPN Plus or whatever it is. Tyler Davis, he was a walk-on for us our first year. He made a 3 at Cal State Northridge. Now he's at Bushnell as a graduate assistant. Who knows if the domino effect of these things have an effect? I think they do. Showing people that, hey, basketball can do something for you. And really, basketball to me is something I love, and it's just something that's full of opportunity if you treat it the right way.
Well, even from afar, before getting to meet you in person here today, I could just sense the momentum that you've been building over the last couple of years, and I've been really excited for everyone involved with La Sierra University and Adventist basketball. So, wish you nothing but the best, and continue to keep building up this program, and we're behind you.
Thank you. It means a lot, and thank you for everything you're doing. You're shining a light on our guys and the entire community, and it means a lot. So thank you.